If your roof starts to leak or your floors really squeak, you live in a money pit. Money pit.
If your basement needs a pump or your place looks like a dump, you live in a money pit. Money pit. Pick up the telephone.
Fix up your home sweet home by calling 888-MONEY-PIT.
The Money Pit is presented by Ladera by Pavestone. Now here's Leslie Segretti.
Coast to coast and floorboards to shingles, this is the Money Pit, and I'm Leslie Segretti. Joining me is Jim Kenzie, the best of the best. Hey, Jim.
Hi, Leslie. How's everything going with you? On this end, everything's tremendous.
All right, I love it. Still keeping the squirrels away, so I'm remembering to reapply the pumpkin deterrent, or I guess the squirrel deterrent.
There you go.
But we'll see. We'll check back in next week. Well, we've got a busy hour for you guys, so let's jump right in. The water's fine. Coming up, are you tired of spending every weekend mowing and weeding and watering and wrestling your lawn into shape? Well, what if you could ditch the work and keep the beauty? Whether you are dreaming of a patio for entertaining, a walkway to define the space, or a beautiful rock garden that doesn't need mowing, Pavestone has styles to suit any aesthetic and every season. We're going to show you how to transform your yard into a space that's not only stunning, but also smart and sustainable. And also ahead, if you've got an in-ground sprinkler system, here is a fall task that you don't want to skip. Winter can cause serious and expensive damage if you don't properly shut your system down before the first deep freeze. We're talking cracked pipes, blown out valves, broken backflow preventers. We're going to share what you need to do right now to protect your irrigation system, whether you're a hands-on DIYer or someone who'd rather just call in a pro. And your garage door is probably the biggest moving part in your entire home and the one that most of us forget to maintain. But if it starts failing, it can quickly become dangerous and expensive. Coming up on the Money Pit, we'll share simple garage door maintenance tips to keep everything running smoothly, safely, and quietly, including what to lubricate, how to test the safety sensors, and why that auto reverse feature could save a life. It only takes a few minutes, but it's one of the smartest fall tune-ups you can do. But first, we need you guys, so give us a call right now at 888-MONEY-PIT. Jim, who's up first?
All right, Leslie, we've got Margaret, and she's evidently a guitar player, and she's in her bathroom. I think, am I reading that right, Leslie?
How do you know this? She says she wants to talk about lead.
Oh, I thought she was a lead guitar player in her bath. I'm so sorry, Margaret.
No, I mean, come on, Jim. Stop always trying to build the band back together and start new bands.
We're putting the band back.
Margaret wants to take the lead. I mean, play the lead. I mean, talk about lead.
Margaret, thanks for tolerating us. What's going on with lead in your bathroom?
My house was built in 1948. It has an old metal tub and ceramic tiles, but the ceramic tiles have been tested and confirmed to have lead. I was advised that if I ever want to remove them, I should be sure that the contractor who does that is trained and certified on safe removal of tiles containing lead. But when I've asked some local contractors about that, they kind of shrug and don't seem to understand that anything different would be required. Can you suggest some questions for me to ask contractors to help determine if they truly do know and understand how to deal with tiles containing lead and safe removal?
That's interesting, Margaret, because we really don't hear too much about lead paint in a bathroom, or specifically as like a glaze in ceramic tiles. I mean, some of the older tiles definitely in that glaze could contain lead and maybe more, but more often we hear about lead paint in a house of that age. So your question about how to find a contractor, though, to help, you need somebody that is EPA certified in lead paint renovation or lead paint removal, because that's the type of pro that you would need to hire. And if the contractors you're talking to just kind of shrug their shoulders and they're like, you know, oh, whatever, it's really it's not the right person for you. I would say that the risk of lead paint exposure from tile is probably less than from paint, just because it's harder for that paint or that lead in that glaze to be released unless you're like shattering those tiles. So if you were renovating that bathroom or the tiles were crumbling, then for sure. Whereas paint, if it's chipping off of a wall or in a lot of cases off of like radiators, that just kind of dates that paint there. The chips fall off, kids kind of pick them up, and that's where the exposure comes from as well. So, there's some things there, but I would consider looking at a product like something that has a tile with an epoxy finish, maybe a product like EcoPel, which is an epoxy type resurfacer. You can coat that tub surface, even coat the tile surface, and it gives you a really durable surface that will prevent any lead exposure coming to the surface of that tile. But it all comes down to the risk when it's time to remove those tiles. As I said, you just don't want that lead getting into the air as you start to break down those tiles or remove the paint. So if that's the direction you're going in, you definitely want to go with a pro who can mitigate this for you and get it out of there. If it's for you, I just, take precautions and make sure I'm very careful when working around it and sealing it in. I can remember, Jim, I don't know if you remember this, when Henry was first born. I mean, he was little. He was like around 1-ish. I put central air conditioning in the house, and I have a very old home. And I guess in the process of them doing some of the work and cutting in vents or whatnot, something got on Henry's hand. We went for a physical. They did a blood work, like a prick on his finger, and it showed like a very minuscule trace amount of lead. And they determined it to be from the surface of his finger and not in his system. But I'm telling you, the calls from the state and child protective services and whatnot, just to determine that, we weren't living in a home in shambles or mistreating the child. So it's like, it's taken very seriously, at least I know in the state of New York. So if Margaret or anybody listening is out there who wants to do some work where there is for sure lead exposure or lead in the paint or the tile, make sure you take it seriously because it can cause a lot of damages to you.
Good tip, Leslie. All right, Leslie, now we have Gonzalo, who's trying to seal up things at his house and make it more efficient. How can we help out, Gonzalo?
I recently finished an air sealing project to make my home a little more energy efficient. Was able to reduce the CFM50 from about 3,400 to 1,700, but I'd like to get it lower than that. I'm concerned that one source of infiltration might be an extension that was built into the house, maybe 3 decades ago.
Well, Gonzalo, it kind of occurs to us that a lot of times when people are trying to seal up their homes, it's kind of a guessing game rather than specific science. Because when you are attacking those drafty spots, you kind of want to be going to the spot where the draft is coming, because then you're going to make the biggest difference. You can't really just attack it in general and be like, well, it'll happen. It'll work eventually. You kind of have to know. So it is hard to say because there's so many places, and it's kind of interesting to see what's causing a big air leak and what's causing, not so much of a big one. So yeah, there are those tests by the energy company that can tell you really what those issues are. And, you can actually, it seems like from your question that you cut your CFM in half. So maybe you've already done some of this energy testing, but what I would do in this case is I would be doing a blower door test. Now, a blower door test is basically just that. They kind of take your front door out and they put in a big frame and a big fan into that space where the door once was. And they can either pressurize by blowing air in or depressurize by pulling the air out of the house. And then with tools like a smoke tester, they kind of take this puffer thing and go around the windows and doors and all of the places that you might think are leaking. And they can basically see which way the air is moving. If it's escaping through the space around the window or escaping where a building has an addition connected to it, like it sounds like in your case, Gonzalo, it will show you that. You might also want to have an infrared inspection done where the walls are kind of scanned and you can see inside behind the wall without cutting anything open. And it will tell you if there is continuous insulation, if anything has become detached or sort of compressed or is missing entirely. And those are ways that you can really think about making your home more energy efficient. It's really about figuring out what the problem is and coming up with a plan to sort of solve that issue. And by the way, you want to make this whole thing as tight as possible, but you need to be careful not to make that space too tight, because if you do, you're not going to be able to have clean, healthy air indoors to breathe. You do need a certain amount of natural ventilation. And so if it gets to a point when you're using something that's called an air to heat exchanger or a fresh air ventilator, which is basically designed to pull fresh air into the house, but not stress you or your heating system or cooling system out at the time. So definitely make sure you're sizing it correctly, you're installing it in the right space, and it's going to operate in the correct manner that you want these heating and cooling devices to, because you're always going to need them, so you better know how to work them. All right, hope that helps you out, Gonzalo. Hey, you want to make our day? Well, go ahead and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and we'll be jumping for joy. Plus, you guys, your feedback helps us make the show even better for you. Just go to moneypit.com/review. Well, fall is here, and it's time to freshen up your interior decor. Here's a no-cost trick with a big impact. Just rearrange your artwork and your accessories. Take a look at the shelves, your framed prints, even your plants, and just move them around. Maybe place one piece in your hallway that would pop more above the sofa, or maybe your kitchen could use that little wall-mounted herb rack or a new print. All of it kind of exists already in your space, so just move it around. You can also create a mini gallery wall with items that you already own. So think about mixing art, framed photos, and objects like baskets or mirrors. You just have to stick to a unifying color or theme so that it feels curated instead of cluttered. And remember, sometimes just giving a room a new focal point, like a bold piece of art or a striking mirror, can make everything else feel new again. Well, if you're anything like most homeowners, the idea of spending every weekend mowing the lawn, weeding, watering, feeding the lawn probably doesn't sound like your dream way to relax. Now, traditional lawns require constant upkeep, and between the fertilizer, the irrigation, and the never-ending weed battles, time, effort, cost, it really can start to wear you down. But here's the thing. You still can have a beautiful, polished outdoor space without all of that maintenance, thanks to Pavestone. Now, Pavestone collection of hardscapes and landscape rock can help you reimagine your yard in a way that's not just low maintenance, but also incredibly stylish and functional. So you want to think about patios, walkways, even retaining walls that cut down on a weekly chore list while adding serious curb appeal. And instead of mowing a massive stretch of grass every Saturday, imagine relaxing on a beautiful paver patio with a drink in your hand. Now, that's a weekend well spent. And one of my favorite solutions, Pavestone Landscape Rock. It comes in a range of styles and colors to match your vibe, whether you love a modern minimalist look or something more natural and rustic. You can use it to define the garden bed. You can create elegant dry riverbeds, or even replace patches of lawn that never quite grow right. And best of all, no mowing, no watering, no chemicals, just a clean, finished look that will last. And when you pair Pavestone's pavers with options like Ladera and Rumblestone, you're going to get long-lasting hardscapes that not only elevate your space, but help you cut back on water use and eliminate the need for harsh lawn treatments. Now you'll get more usable space, better drainage, and less hassle, all while adding to the long-term value of your home. So if you're ready to swap out that mower for a little more free time, head to pavestone.com and check out their full line of products. Whether you want to build out a new patio, carve out that garden path, or simply give your front yard a refresh, Pavestone has smart, sustainable solutions to help you get the look you want with way less work. Because let's be real, guys, your weekends are too short to be spent pushing a lawnmower around. All right, let's get back to our listeners. Jim, who do we have next?
All right, Leslie, now we've got Bobby on the line, who's dealing with a water issue in Virginia. Tell us what's happening, Bobby.
So after some, heavy rains we had last year, I noticed I just walked down in the basement, and it wasn't a lot of water. It just, picture taking a gallon of water and walking around,
okay,
and just pouring it out as you go.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it's hydrostatic pressure that's just pushing the water up through the cracks and through the cinder block. I can't remember the paint that you paint the cinder block wall.
Oh, I think you're talking about Drylock. Mm-hmm.
dry line. And I know there's a lot of moisture behind the wall because where I painted it again, starting to flake off, the moisture buildup.
Yeah, Bobby, you're kind of going in with this idea that you can make your house float, but you can't. You're trying to seal those walls as if there was a hull of a boat. I said hull of that's a hull of a boat. You're kind of treating it as this watertight bottom, and that's really not going to happen. But you've told me something very important here, and that's the problem only happens when it rains heavily or it gets worse after a heavy rain. And that kind of gives us an answer, which is really a very simple one. And it's kind of basically this. The water is sourcing from bad drainage right outside of your foundation perimeter. It's not a rising water table. And basically what's happening is either your gutters are clogged, the gutters are undersized, the downspouts are discharging right near the foundation corners. Maybe those downspouts aren't extended out. And with water allowed to collect around the house like that, that water will just kind of find ways to leak through those very porous walls and start to show up in your basement. Now, it can come through the walls or it can go under the floor, and it can show up like even a little geyser in your basement space. And same problem, same source. It's just the grading and the drainage that are causing this. So we'd like you to go to moneypit.com and find on the homepage one of our most popular articles, How to Stop Basements from Leaking. It's a 10 or 12 article package there, and there's one about basements that you should be looking at. You'll be amazed at how simple of a fix this is. And in fact, it's a lot less work than you think you're going to be doing, and probably less than you've already done so far.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm actually currently working on the gutter situation. I'm extending those a little bit farther out away from the house. I'm trying to get positive drainage, and all that good stuff. And I just wonder if a sump pump would be, I guess, the best route, or I guess I'm looking for the best route.
Yeah, I don't think a sump pump is going to be the best route, because you're mentioning that this only happens when there's overflowing, heavy, crazy rain. And if it were happening like on a random Tuesday with no rain and you're still getting dozens of gallons out of the dehumidifier, then that's a problem. But I think what we're really seeing here with you is that it's just weather related. So I think you're probably looking to run an experiment yourself on your own home and kind of see what the benefits or possibilities or different outcomes could be. So maybe go buy yourself 3 or 4 pieces of leader material, 8 to 10 feet long, attach it temporarily to the end of that last downspout where it comes down, and watch what happens. You're going to move all of that water away from the house. And once you've proven to yourself that that's what's happening, and all you have to do is figure out how to make it work well and look pretty, then it might be something like you're running some PVC underground and having the downspout deposit into that, and then it kind of all comes out elsewhere. Or maybe you're sending the water out to the curb to manage it there. But whatever it is, you cannot let that water collect around the foundation, because if it does, you're going to have some real problems, okay?
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, gotcha. Thanks so much for giving us a call. Hey, are you looking for a big design impact without painting an entire room? Well, paint something unexpected, like your front door. Could be the inside or the outside, maybe your kitchen island, a piece of old furniture, or even just the back wall of your bookshelves. You can pick a bold accent color that plays well with the season or your existing palette. Think about like forest green, navy, even a deep mustard yellow. These small pops of color can add personality and make your space feel curated and intentional. It's a weekend project that costs very little, but gives you a dramatic high design feel without the mess of painting a whole room. I love that. I love a quick project that makes a big difference. All right, Jim, let's see who we have on the line. Who's up next for the Money Pit?
Oh, Leslie, let's go to the Florida Keys. What do you say?
Yes, please. Aruba, Jamaica, Florida Keys. I want to take you. All of them. Let's go.
Let's do it. We've got Lillian, who is there now dealing with some worms in the patio. Fill us in, Lillian, please.
Calling in reference to some worms that we keep getting into our screened-in patio that we seem to have here in the Florida Keys. And I'm not sure what to do about them. I've tried different sprays to try to keep them out, and nothing is working.
I do not want to go to the worms party, though. Can we go to a different part? All right. Well, we'll help you first, Lillian, and then we'll go where the worms are not, which will be your place because we're getting rid of them. I've kind of seen these worms pop up after a heavy rain. They kind of get onto your patio and your sidewalk. I mean, is that the kind of place, they just kind of get lost out of the soil? I think just because it's too wet. And when they do it, which is gross here, the worms actually breathe through their skin. So when you get a heavy rain, they need to get oxygen. So they're coming out of the lawn, out of the dirt, and they'll just crawl right up to the patio, which is kind of sadly like the worm committing suicide. But then they get baked by the sun and, that's not good for them. So I wouldn't try to do anything that stops the worms from enjoying the soil. It's unfortunate that they have this behavior that happens from the rain. And, you live in a beautiful part of the world in the Florida Keys, but you also live in a sometimes super rainy part given, hurricane season, which we're smack in the middle of. So I would say kind of ride it out. Just turn a blind eye to them. And if you see them laying on your patio before they get cooked in the sun, kind of encourage them back into the soil. Go on, get back. Go. And as a mom of boys, I will tell you, they actually do turn into two worms if you cut them in half. Not that I encourage that behavior, and they don't do it anymore. But when they were little, they'd be like, look, and it's true.
Okay, Leslie, on line 6, we have the PETA attorneys.
We don't do it anymore. But, boys are boys when they're little. At least they're not bringing them in the house anymore.
Well, and a lot of boys are still boys when they're big. So.
Ugh, boys. Well, if you have an in-ground sprinkler system, here's a fall maintenance task that's an absolute must. Winterizing. Now, if you're new to sprinkler systems, this might sound like a fancy chore, but it's actually a super important step that can save you hundreds, even thousands of dollars in repairs down the line. Now, when the water is left sitting in your sprinkler line during freezing weather, it can expand and it can crack the pipes, it can damage fittings, and even destroy your backflow preventer. And trust me, none of that is cheap to fix. So how do you shut down your system the right way? Well, there are a couple of different methods, and it kind of depends on your individual setup. So if your system is equipped for it, you can use the manual drain method, and that just means shutting off the water supply to the sprinkler system, opening up the drain valves, and letting all the water flow out. Now, some folks even run each zone briefly to make sure everything is emptied. It's low tech and it's effective, but it only works if your system was installed with manual drains in mind. Now, the more common method these days, especially in colder climates, is a blowout method, and that's when you use an air compressor to force the water out of the lines. You hook it up at the proper point and then run each zone while air is pushing that remaining water out. It's incredibly effective, but it can be risky if you don't use the right PSI or you don't know exactly what you're doing. Too much pressure and you could damage the very system that you're trying to protect. So unless you're really confident in your setup, this is one of those times when hiring a licensed irrigation pro just makes a lot of sense. They're going to have the right tools and the know-how, and many even include the spring startup as part of this service package, which is a bonus. Also, don't forget the backflow preventer. Now, this is a device that stops the contaminated water from flowing backward into your drinking supply. If it freezes, it can crack and leak, and you might not even notice it until your spring garden turns into a muddy mess. Now, most systems have a valve specifically for draining this device, or you can wrap it in insulation for added protection. Bottom line, shutting down your sprinkler system is one of those small fall chores that delivers a huge payoff, doesn't take long, and it can save you from a ton of hassle and expense when the weather warms back up. So take care of it now. Your future self and your spring flowers will thank you.
All right, Leslie, heading to Bismarck, North Dakota, where it just sounds cold saying that. Welcome to the Money Pit, Alan. How can we help out?
I've got a pretty good lawn, but it needs some reseeding. I was told that if you reseed just before the snow falls, it will set in there during the winter, and then when the spring comes, it'll automatically start to grow and come up without doing a whole lot of other work to it. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong there, Alan. But I mean, it's not actually like, well, maybe in North Dakota, fall is right before the snow starts to fall. But generally, you don't want to wait till the winter months. You do want to wait to fall, like early to mid fall is probably the best time. And the reason you're doing that is because you're giving the lawn more time to grow deeper roots. So by the time next summer comes around, it's not getting dried out because the roots are shallow. So fall's the right time to do seeding. Definitely, I would rake the lawn and add some new seed to it anytime now. September, October, great months to do this generally, but I wouldn't wait until like winter's on the way because it's just not going to grow. And you want to give it a couple of months to really take hold so it's in good shape by summertime.
Okay, so now's a good time. And I have a few weeds that I'm not sure really what they are, but I've used a little 2,4-D and that's taken them out. And so they're crispy. Do I need to rake those up and do anything, or can I just seed right over them?
Yeah, if you have a few weeds, make sure you pull them out all the way to the roots. And I wouldn't worry about that seed. You know, you can put it right over that weed there. It's not going to give you an issue. And then come springtime, you'll see that those weeds are going to not come through because that grass that's sort of emerging is going to be a good blocker for them.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great. I thank you very much for your help. I appreciate it. I love your show.
All right, great. Well, thanks so much for calling us at 888-MONEY-PIT, and good luck with your project. Give us a call anytime at 888-MONEY-PIT. We are always standing by to take your info about what you are working on at your money pit. And when we come back to the studio, we'll give you a call and help you out with all of your projects. You can also shoot us an email at moneypit.com. We're always happy to lend a hand. All right, let's get back to the callers. Jim, who's on the line?
All right, Leslie, we've got Luis on the line who's looking for some help with the basement ceiling.
All right, Luis, thanks so much for joining us.
So my fall and winter project will be to revamp our basement. I'm going to start with the ceilings. Right now we have the old school drop tile ceilings, which we're not fond of, and we're not looking to put in the newer stylized drop tile ceilings either. So far, my idea has been to put drywall the ceiling. However, my wife is really trying to convince me to not put anything and just leave the wood exposed.
You know, basements could be tough because you're sort of limited with the height there. You kind of want to finish off the space and, you know, there's a lot of things that you could do with a great potential, but you do need to hide a lot of stuff in that basement ceiling. So even though you hate that drop ceiling, behind it is plumbing, electrical, wiring, all that kind of stuff. Now, you can tidy up the wiring that's in there, maybe tuck it against those beams, paint that ceiling, or if you just want, you could leave it as is. But I mean, you say no drop ceiling, but drop ceilings can actually be beautiful. Perhaps you just haven't seen what a newer drop ceiling looks like, because you can get those tiles in a ton of different decorative options. So you can have some that look like, recessed ceilings or coffered ceilings, or interesting paneling, or even tin panels. There's just a lot of different ways that you could utilize that drop ceiling before you're like, nope, it's got to go away. We hate it. So maybe take a look at some of the newer options in those ceiling tiles and then decide. And if you still say, no, I hate it, I will be taking your call again, Luis, in, 5 to 7 business days. All right. Good luck with your basement.
When it comes to what your family eats and drinks, you know your choices matter. You're the expert because you know what fits your life. And getting it right starts with good information. That's why America's beverage companies are sharing more information about our ingredients at goodtoknowfacts.org. No spin, no judgments, just the facts straight from the experts for more than 140 beverage ingredients. Visit goodtoknowfacts.org.
Shopping is hard, right? But I found a better way. Stitch Fix online personal styling makes it easy. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required. And he sends just for me pieces, plus outfit recommendations and styling tips. I keep what works and send back the rest. It's so easy. Make style easy. Get started today at stitchfix.com/Spotify. That's stitchfix.com/Spotify.
Well, let's talk about the one part of your home that works hard every day, but rarely gets any attention, Your garage door. It opens, it closes thousands of times a year, but unless it's squeaking or it's stuck, most of us don't give it a second thought. I mean, the truth is your garage door is the largest moving system in your house, and a little seasonal maintenance can go a long way toward preventing breakdowns and keeping your family safe. So first up, you want to look and listen. You need to start by simply watching and listening to the door in action. Is it moving smoothly? Is it jerking? Does it sound quiet and steady? Or is it creaking or grinding or rattling? Strange noises are often the first sign that something is off. Next up, you want to tighten any hardware. The garage doors go up and down a lot, and all of that movement can loosen the hardware. So use a socket wrench to check and tighten all the roller brackets and the bolts on the door and the tracks. While you're there, inspect the rollers. Now, the rollers should be checked twice a year, and you should be replacing them every 5 to 7 years. If they're cracked, chipped, or wobbly, it's just time to swap them out. Now, all of the moving parts should be lubricated, and this is the easiest way to extend the life of the garage door. Apply a high-quality lithium-based lubricant to the rollers, the hinges, and the tracks. Don't use WD-40. It's a cleaner, not a lubricant. Now, a little garage door spray lube goes a long way. Now you need to test the auto reverse feature. And this is a big one for safety. Place a roll of paper towels under the door and close it. The door should detect the obstruction and automatically reverse. If it doesn't, your system may need an adjustment or a repair, and it's not safe until you fix it. Also, you want to check those photo eye sensors. Those are the little sensors on either side of the garage door, about 6 inches off the ground. It's the one that my children keep blocking with a hockey stick or a soccer ball and then say, "Why won't the garage door close?" It's the eye sensors. So wipe them clean, make sure they're aligned. If the beams don't connect, the door's not going to close, or worse, it could close unpredictably. And then also look at the weather stripping. It's sort of the last stop here. Check the rubber seal at the bottom of the door. If it's cracked or brittle, replace it to keep out the water, the debris, and all of the pests this fall. It's great advice whether your garage is attached or detached to make this spot problem-free. So tackle that on your next free weekend, guys. It's a good project. And now is Jim's favorite time to answer emails. I mean, we get so many emails, Jim. So it's, it's unfortunate we only get this time to do so, but pick out your favorite from this week.
Tough call. So I'll go with Jim.
How did you end up with that one? I wonder
why I would pick that. Well, let's jump into his email and see what he has to say here. I've recently had a new roof installed, and now I'm noticing nail pops on the ceiling. Can I just drive the nails back through and patch and paint over it? Well, you could.
I mean,
you don't wanna.
That's kind of what most people try to do with nail pops. And a nail pop, by the way, if you're not familiar with that, is when you have a nail that kind of starts to back out of the drywall and sort of takes a little bit of that spackle with it. I mean, usually it's the diameter of a quarter. So if you try to drive it back in, you will see that it will just come back out again. So what you want to do is take another nail and kind of overlap the head of the loose nail. And don't even take that loose nail out. You just want to kind of overlap it and drive it back in. This way you're kind of going into some fresh wood with that new nail and locking that old one right in place. Now, if you do take it out, you could just replace it with a drywall screw. Either way, you're going to have to spackle and spot prime, and that should be good to go. And by the way, seeing nail pops doesn't mean that you have a big structural problem. I think a lot of people freak out when they see it. It's pretty much normal. I mean, there's normal expansion and contraction with the house just after normal movement, and that can cause it to occur. And it's funny, I feel like you don't see any, and then all of a sudden you see a bunch. So just tackle them, and maybe it's time to repaint that room. It could be the fall decor project you've been dreaming of. Trying to put a positive spin on it. But that definitely should help you out. All right, Jim? Both Jims?
Stereo Jim.
All right. Thanks so much for calling us, or thanks so much for emailing us at moneypit.com.
All right, we've talked about outdoor projects, Leslie, maintenance musts, and fall prep. But before we wrap up this hour, it's time for your last word. So today, we're heading up the ladder to talk gutter cleaning, why it matters, how to stay safe, and one simple upgrade that can save you from climbing up there again next year. Leslie?
Yeah, cleaning your gutters may not be the most glamorous job, but it is one of the smartest ways to prevent major home damage, especially as we head into the deep fall season. So safety first. If you're not comfortable on that ladder, don't work at heights often, this might not be the task for you to DIY, so hire a pro. But if you want to do it, you want to be safe. So if you're up for the challenge, always watch for hidden hazards like a power line or a bee's nest. You want to clear those gutters, so arm yourselves with gloves, a sturdy ladder, and a garden hose. You can start at one end and work your way down. And remember, never reach or lean or kind of, push off the roof. Stay firmly on that ladder and only move it as needed. Here's a tip. If you spot any loose gutter sections, tighten them while you're up there with gutter screws. It's a quick fix that can save you from costly water damage later on. You want to check the spouts. When you reach the end, you want to spray water through that downspout to make sure they're clear. If you're seeing clogs, you may need to disconnect that spout and clear it manually. You want to make sure that the water flows at least 4 to 6 feet away from the foundation. And you can add gutter guards here. Now, once you've got everything cleaned out and reattached, you could consider adding those gutter guards to just keep the leaves and the debris out for good. It'll save you time and ladder climbs in the future. And if you're curious about which gutter guard actually does the trick or which you should be skipping, there is a full review at moneypit.com. Well, we've had a very busy hour with you guys today, so thank you so much for joining us. Next week, we're going to dive into heating season, and if you haven't fired up your heating system yet, it is coming. But before you crank that thermostat, now is the perfect time to make sure your system is safe, efficient, and ready for the season ahead. All right, thanks so much for spending your valuable time with us. Remember, you can do it yourself, but you don't have to do it alone. See you next week.
On the Money Pit Radio Show. On the Money Pit Radio Show. Pick up the telephone. Fix up your home sweet home by calling 888-MONEY-PIT.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and LifeLock has tips to protect your identity. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication, report phishing, and update the software on your devices. And for comprehensive identity protection, let LifeLock alert you to suspicious uses of your personal information. LifeLock also fixes identity theft, guaranteed or your money back. Stay smart, safe, and protected with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.